Today I am predicting the future of the most popular SeaWorld park, the one everyone thinks of when they think of SeaWorld. Yes, this is SeaWorld Orlando in Florida. I'm talking about what I think they'll be adding in the next 5 years from the years 2017 to 2021. Although it isn't necessarily what I think they'll add, but also what I would like to see added to the park, so it's kind of a combination between the two. So let's get started, but as usual, let's take a look at what they've added in the last 5 years. Now, unlike some of the past 5-year plans I've done, I wonder how much this will actually impact their next 5 years. Because I imagine that SeaWorld is going in a different direction than the direction that they were going in 5 years ago. And so I think we're going to be seeing a lot more done in the next few years compared to the last 5 years. We basically only saw 2 major additions: Mako, their largest roller coaster, which was added this year in 2016, and then they also added Antarctica Empire of the Penguin. Everything else was a smaller addition, and I think most people agree that the future of SeaWorld is going to be pretty different than how they have done things in the past. After what has happened with Blackfish, and if you look at the direction that the 2 Busch Gardens parks are going, they're both focusing a lot on the rides and less on the animals. And I think SeaWorld is going to start doing that too. But I'm going to talk more about that later. Let's start with 2017. While I do think that they're going to be focusing a lot on rides, they still want to improve the guest experience, and they want to do whatever they can to make their animals happier and make their environment better, and it's been rumored that they'll be upgrading Dolphin Cove, and I think that this is a very valid possibility. That area of the park hasn't really been touched in a while, and so I could see an upgrade like that happening. And because they just added Mako, I imagine that 2017 won't be a huge addition. Something on the smaller side, like a Dolphin Cove upgrade, would make a lot of sense. I think 2018 is going to be a larger addition. Let's think about a dark ride. SeaWorld released this concept of the SeaWorld Rescue Dark Ride, where riders board in these giant trucks and go through this indoor dark ride type experience. Think something kind of like Kong. They mentioned that this would eventually get out to some of the SeaWorld parks, and I think that this sounds like a great concept, and I think it'd be a great fit at SeaWorld Orlando. I imagine that 2018 would be a good estimate for when this park could receive an attraction like this. And as for where to put a big building like that, they have some land available next to Dolphin Cove that I think they could fit in a big enough building. It would of course take some land clearing, and they might have to shift a few things around, but that'd be nice because then they would have a big new ride in that section of the park. Now let's talk about 2019. The other concept that SeaWorld released was this idea of a motorbike jet ski type ride, where you are essentially put in the place of someone who is going to rescue sea animals, and you're on this jet ski and moving through the water. Think of something like Pony Express at Knott's Berry Farm. I think this is great because this is a great in-between roller coaster for people that are too big for the Shamu Express, but aren't quite brave enough to tackle Kraken. It wouldn't have any inversions, it wouldn't be too extreme, and so this would be an outstanding fit for SeaWorld Orlando. I believe SeaWorld San Antonio is adding this in 2017, and so it makes sense that SeaWorld would send one of these to SeaWorld Orlando. I don't know if it would be an exact replica of the one SeaWorld San Antonio is getting, but it'd probably be something fairly similar. Now, as for where to put it, I could see this thing having an elongated layout where it isn't very compact but more of kind of an out and back kind of feel. And I think you could fit it between the Blue Horizon Stadium and Journey to Atlantis. Now keep in mind I haven't actually been to SeaWorld Orlando, so this is just me trying to figure things out using Google Earth. I think it'd be possible. I believe that they'd be able to make room, but who knows, maybe I'm wrong. And if I am, that's fine. I think SeaWorld Orlando would be able to find a better place to put it. But either way, this would be a great attraction. Now in 2020, I think that this would be a smaller year. I could see them doing some upgrades to the main Shamu Stadium, make the habitat for their whales better. But I think this also kind of ties in with the Blue World project that SeaWorld unveiled a few years ago. And I think a lot of people are unsure whether that is actually going to happen. So even if an upgrade as nice as Blue World doesn't happen, I could see some smaller upgrades go to the stadium that would improve things. I mean, keep in mind that they have room to expand. Right next to the stadium is a small little lake that they could easily fill in if they want to make room for some sort of expansion to the stadium. Now, like I mentioned, I think SeaWorld Orlando is going to start straying away from the animal business. We already know that SeaWorld is going to stop breeding the whales, And so if that were to happen, I could see 10 years from now SeaWorld deciding to be less of an animal park and more of an animal-themed park, with less animals and more animal-themed rides. Something like a park from Hershend, like Dollywood or Silver Dollar City. Something like that would make a lot of sense. I think it'd be SeaWorld's way of trying to fit in with the way that the world is going. And if that were the case, I don't think it's that far-fetched to think that they might eventually remove one of their stadiums. I don't know if it'd be the big Shamu Stadium. And remember, SeaWorld said that they're going to stop showing their Orca show, so eventually they may not even need the stadium anymore. So instead of stadium upgrades in 2020, it might be a stadium removal in 2020. And those things take up a lot of land. Removing one of those would open up room for bigger and better attractions. I haven't incorporated the removal of a stadium into this 5-year plan, but it's something I just wanted to throw out there because I don't think it's that far-fetched. But I think that year, because it would be a smaller year, what they would also do is, hear me out on this, remove Empire of the Penguin. And this would be so that they could add a B&M wing coaster in 2021. Now, why remove Empire of the Penguin? First of all, it sits on a lot of land. Removing that, you'd be able to fit in a nice, cool wing coaster. That'd be a great fit for the park. And Empire of the Penguin was kind of a flop. A lot of people aren't crazy about the ride. It has this cool trackless technology, but the actual ride is kind of eh. And so it wouldn't surprise me if even sooner than 2020, SeaWorld decides to remove Empire of the Penguin. I don't think it's that far out there. This is not the greatest of rides. Plus, by then, they would have a better dark ride, the SeaWorld Rescue Dark Ride. So, let's talk about this wing coaster. I imagine it'd probably have around 5 to 6 inversions, not as many as Kraken, and of course, they'd probably incorporate a near-miss element. As for the theme, I'd love to see a penguin theme. That'd kind of make up for the loss of their penguin-themed attraction. And of course, like they did with Mako, they could incorporate some theming throughout the ride. And that way, they'd also be able to still have an Antarctica-themed section of the park. They'd just be removing the dark ride, but kind of keeping that overall Arctic theme. And I think that this would be a great attraction. I mean, in 2021, the last major thrill ride that they will have added was Mako in 2016. The other rides are a lot more family-based. And like I said, I think SeaWorld Orlando is going to start adding more roller coasters. So just to recap, this is my 5-year plan for SeaWorld Orlando. I don't know if all of this will end up happening in the next 5 years. Some of this may end up getting stretched out to 7 or 10 years. But I think a lot of this is fairly possible. Just based off of what we've seen from the SeaWorld company in the last few years, it seems that they're going in a different direction than they have in their past. And so I think big changes are coming to SeaWorld Orlando. These are my predictions, but I want to know from you what you would like to see at this park in the next few years. Post all of your comments below. Do you agree with me? Am I totally wrong? If I am wrong, what would you like to see at the park? So post all of those thoughts below, and make sure to stay tuned for more 5-year plans here at Coaster Studios.